have one?
Oh, thank you. All right. So before we go to questions, which we will, I wanted to go over just a couple of things and some things that at Cochrane we've been learning a lot about, working on lately. We've heard a lot about MCP. People, struggle to kind of see exactly what that looks like, especially if it's not something that you're working with every day. I like to think of MCP like a standard for AI, especially for agentic work, to be able to access a handful of different things like tools, context, everything along those lines. Now, the way it works is whenever your agent stack, whenever your agent tool connects to an MCP, it basically gets a series of resources, tools, and prompts that it's given through a machine-readable menu. So in the center of this slide, you can see in the tools section a little call that is points right with a point ID and a value. That's how these agents talk to different systems. And what that is saying you have a pile of data called points. You have an action you're allowed to do to it called write. I'm going to tell you which point ID that is, and you're going to tell me which value that is. When you talk conversationally to one of your agent tools, it's filling in those gaps, and it knows how to do that because of the machine-readable menu it was given from an MCP server hosted by someone like Tritium or any other vendor that's hosting that MCP. So, for instance, we already use these every day. Everyone already uses agents. ChatGPT or Copilot, when you say, hey, I want you to edit my email, it's using an MCP. It's going, I'm allowed to look at drafts. I'm allowed to do an update on this email, and I'm going to do it with this body. You can think of it the same way with building automation systems. The same thing we did before. Points, right, AHU3, supplier temp set point 55. That's what's happening on the back end, and that's what these vendors are enabling you to be able to do. The one thing I really want to touch on before we get into questions is what this orchestration layer and your agent layer looks like. And I want to point out, one of these pieces that I think is important. Here at the, ControlsCon as well as AHR, we've talked a lot about, what the vendors and what the AI companies are providing. But there's also layers here for us as distributors at Cochrane Supply, and there's massive layer for you as contractors and building owners to provide a data layer that you need to think about, and you need to think of it as one of your assets in the future moving forward. So just as an example, if someone is using your agent stack at your company as a building owner, as a contractor, and says, AHU3 on the Brookline job is short cycling, pull last week's trends, check the spec, and tell me what's wrong, you can see what that agent has access to as far as data and what it's going to do through the orchestration that you've built for it. And so one thing it's going to do is it is going to reach out to the MCP that's hosted on the BAS and do one of those calls for maybe pulling the trends for that air handler and trying to store some of that data first. Just like when you ask ChatGPT a question and you see it thinking and then it runs through, I'm going to check this website, I'm going to check this data set I have access to on the computer. You can think of your agent layers doing the same thing. On the far right, you can see, in the middle, the contractor layer, you can see that it might be hitting one of your data layers. If you don't have a data layer that's ready to be exposed to these tools, this is a piece that you actually can provide and a piece that will be valuable for your company. That agent, after it looks at those trends, can then go into your system and see when the last time you had a service call to it, what that technician did. After that, if it's able to kind of quantify and come up with an idea of, we think this is the problem, it could even reach out to a vendor or a distribution layer and see if that part's in stock. That's something that we're looking at, making sure we have that data exposed and ready to go. And the response you get from that one question after the agent runs through all those layers looks something like, AHU3 short cycles when supplier temps less than 10 degrees. That signifies a vendor fault code. It's happened before. The distributor has the equivalent in stock. Do you want me to order it? That's the future of where this is going, and that's the response you're going to see and your technicians are going to see on the app that your team gives them. So just keep in mind, your agent layer is a layer of context that is valuable. It's something, as a distributor, we know we have a data layer that's valuable that we want to expose as well, make sure that everyone has access to. But you have your own as a contractor, and you have an agent layer that's specialized and has more features and functionality than what a lot of us do. So after that, I'll bring up Anybody have any questions for any of our panelists? If the panelists want to come back up real quick, we've got about 10, 15 minutes. Like I said, food will be at 12, doors will be locked until then.
Putting us on the stools?
Yeah, you can come up on the stools if you don't mind.
I got a question for Cochrane at the MCP layer. Is that, I guess, is that all going to be cloud hosted, or are there modules that we're going to be plugging into the JACE, exposing some of those tools directly for the agent to directly access? Because, if the agent's going to want to run Python tools and whatnot, it's obviously not going to be able to do that on a JACE. We don't have interpreters
Correct.
installed, you know what I mean? So what does that look like? Are we purely going to be cloud-based with remote connect and whatnot, services?
Your layer could live wherever you see it, and I'll let any of these people respond as well. But the way I see it is that data set and that read-write API that all of these vendors, but for example, the Niagara Cloud Suite has that. That would be one layer that your agent has access to. Now, it would be able to go in and reference things that your team has done in the past, maybe any of your internal documentation if you have it exposed in a way where your agent layer can do that. But then that building owner's layer or that BAS layer also just becomes another source where it could perform actions, of course.
Yeah, definitely it doesn't need to run on cloud independently. So the cognition that I was showing you, that's a box that runs like a nano data center on-prem. So you run all the AI engine in the edge. Only the model gets published in the cloud so that it can be replicated across the entire portfolio. And the learning stays within that data center comprehensively, and that is built on Niagara. So you can do a lot with that box right there.
And how much does that server cost?
Definitely.
The on-prem.
No, determines on value and cost. They are interrelated, right?
Sure.
And obviously, if you're driving more value out of it, a higher tier car will cost you more with a lower tier functionality car, right? It's like lower limited edition and the higher edition. It's the same as how much functionality you want to unlock, how much value you're unlocking, what outcomes you're achieving, and based on that, you can charge the customer.
Okay. I got one. Can I do one more question, or are we short on time?
You're good. No, we got plenty of time. Go ahead.
And so these models doing these analysis, are you guys foreseeing just using like the frontier model LLM calls into their APIs, or are we doing any like fine tuning or even pre-training on specific HVAC energy analysis with our own models, or with your own creating your own models?
Honeywell's, like being a building controls company, we have a lot of industry knowledge from past, I believe, 70, 80 years, even though it's a 100-year-old company. So we got into this domain. And I think we are utilizing the basis from our knowledge. And of course, learning keeps on coming with the APIs also. API is just a fragment of it, but not the entire product for us, right? We have immense knowledge base which we inquire, and also the tool sets that we regularly check and comprehensively enhance the knowledge of the LLMs.
Okay.
So I have a question I just talked about. I think it's important to tell the contractors in the room how they can get that data that they have in a format that these agents and systems can access so that they're ready for the future.
Yep. See, there's no template. It's just the ontology you have, the way you are managing your sites. You just update your data into the server, and that's it. The AI is intelligent enough to understand what to pick from where, and continuously build on those LLMs.
We talk a lot about metadata, and when we do that, we love to talk about tags. And I do think tags are important, except that it's not hard for AI to tag. You can take a point list right now and throw it at ChatGPT and be like, hey, based off Project Haystack, what do you think I should tag it with? And it's be like, oh yeah, here's what I think. It might hallucinate a little bit, but you can put it on the rails. When we talk about AI, I like to kind of test it against natural intelligence. So if you said, hey, Ruben, I have this terminal box and damper's wide open, I don't have any air. And I'm gonna be like, okay, well, I can help you fix that. I don't know your building. But my first question would be, well, what air handler does it belong to? Like there are relationships that exist within these systems, throughout the entire systems, that AI can't really figure out. You might be able to run these tests and be like, hey, I turned this air handler on, all the other air handlers off. I see airflow on these VAVs. Maybe I can imply a relation. I think that those relations, not just for air handlers, but for chill water and hot water and steam and even electrical, are going to be really important for AI to be efficient at what it does. We talked about IntelliDetect and the alarms. One of the features is alarm cascading. The problem being we have a ton of alarms. Like my alarm console is so full. Can we find the root cause? Maybe only one out of those 100 is the real issue and it cascaded the other 99. Well, we need to know how all of that data relates, not just identify it with tags, but can we see how it relates in order to find that root cause and be like, oh, okay, forget all those airflow alarms. Your fan's not running on the VAV zoned air handler.
Yeah, like I saw a demo of someone doing, they took the mechanical prints and the building plans and specs, threw it into the model along with their controls data to create the relationships between everything. I think that's kind of the direction that is probably where this is going. But in terms of the contractor level, when they have their service records and that kind of data, is there a format that should be in, or some sort of like different file type or something like that this data should be in so that it's easier for the AI to access and use? That's my question, I guess.
So I'll chime in. I think what Ruben said, I agree with wholeheartedly. I follow your question. You're saying, how do I go back, right? And like clean the past work, make it useful for the future. And the answer to that is you have to pick what you're going to land on. Is it Forge? Is it code? Is it whatever the next thing is? And unfortunately, it requires a bit of work, unless you have those prints. If you have those prints, of course, you can go a bit faster. But the alternative, like absent that, you're going to have to do a bit of work and pick the platform you have to land on. I don't think that contractors are going to be able to work on 17 platforms anymore at the same time. I just don't. Like, you have to commit to something, and then you have to just commit and drive that hard, whether you're in commercial real estate, whether you're in data center, whether you're in whatever it is that you may be. Pick a platform that gives you the flexibility for you to actually be the creative mind in there, and then allow you to drive whatever vertical you're working on. But I don't know any other way other than to actually just do some of the work, bring it in, and then but then think about the opportunity on that, right? Like, the buildings, all the relationships, and all these things came together and their locations and so on. Is just pick a platform that you feel is most ready, and it allows you to go the fastest, really, right? And a partner that you think is going to sit side by side. Of course, I think Code Labs is the best, but I'm sure these guys think their stuff is the best.
Any other questions? Got a great group of guys up here. Don't miss it. Anything? All right. Everybody give a round of applause to our participants. Enjoy lunch. Thank you for coming to ControlsCon 2026. We'll see you all next year, right?
No pre-announcement, teaser.
Thank you, guys.